All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So we have an intimate audience today, which is actually great because I can tailor the presentation a little bit more to what you all are interested in. In fact, we may try and wrap a little early because I know people probably have dinner plans and want to get a drink afterward. So first of all, my name is Ben Werner, and I'm part of the product marketing team for CRM. I originally had planned this as a co-presentation with a friend of mine, Albert Koyman, on the Link team, but alas, he got scheduled to present at another session at the same time. So today, I'll be trying to represent Link as best I can, but you'll probably get a little bit more of a CRM-centric view on the contact center space. So before I get started, I'm curious, maybe just do a scale of 1 to 3, with 3 being you're a contact center guru, you've been around, you've seen it, you know the days way back when we used to call it a call center, versus somebody at a 1 and they're getting, maybe kind of just into the contact center space, you're pretty new to it. Maybe just a quick show of hands, like how many of you are grizzled contact center folks, you've been around, you've seen it all? All right, got a few of those guys. And how many people are somewhere in the middle? A couple of you. And how many people are just getting started? Okay, so that's actually a pretty good mix across the board. So in order to get started, I'd like to just quickly level set a little bit on contact center. And I think that'll serve as a good basis to build upon. So a little known fact about the contact center is that everyone who works in this industry is amazingly attractive. You never would have known this, but if you go to a support site and you look at a picture, every agent I have ever seen is extremely attractive. Now, of course, the real world in the contact center sometimes looks a little bit more, looks a little different than that. Sometimes it's almost a sweatshop. Honestly, you have very big locations sometimes, and interactions are constantly streaming through, and there's just a great deal of work that goes on, of human work, human labor in the contact center. But not every place is like that. So on this slide, I've tried to show a little bit of some different types of contact centers. Of course, you have inbound and outbound contact centers. In an inbound organization, those interactions are passed to an agent. So, right, if I call up a company on the phone, then I'm initiating that transaction with that organization. If it's an outbound contact center, that's different. Then I might get a call from somebody. It might be a telemarketer or something like that. Maybe beyond telemarketing, something a little bit more evolved than that. Let's say I download a white paper from a vendor's website. I might get a follow-up phone call later from a salesperson who might be working in a contact center, giving me more information about what I downloaded. So there's also Type A, Type B, and Type A, Type B is not really an industry name. That's just a name I've chosen for the purposes of the discussion. But in a Type A, it's pretty high volume, pretty low touch. Agents don't have a lot of time to spend on the phone or on a chat with a customer, and it's very process driven. There's also organizations that are much more low volume. So in those low volume situations, they're also delivering a greater personalized touch. They're dealing with higher value customers. They might not have an opportunity to interact with those high value individuals very often, and so that interaction is very critical that it happen just as best experience as it can be. In almost all of these situations, there's pretty high turnover, about 30% year over year. Agents choose another job, then they decide working in the contact center is not for them, and the pay is not very good. One of the things that managers do to help alleviate some of that turnover and some of that low pay is to let agents work from home. So instead of coming into a drab cubicle environment where there's lots of people handling interactions, they actually can work in their pajamas and their bunny slippers at home. And it's a little bit more of an enjoyable work atmosphere. And then lastly, you can have internal-facing contact centers, right, like a help desk in an organization versus external-facing where they're dealing with customers. And so sorry, my slides here are out of order. I'll actually switch back to this slide here. I wanted to just talk about 4 basic technology ingredients, and we'll go deeper on this. But at a high level, right, you have the agent desktop. This is the user interface where the agent is doing their work. It's really where they're living and breathing during work hours. Second, you have the interaction channels. So in this case, an interaction channel is something like phone, email, chat, could be text messaging, could be a Skype video call. There's lots of different interaction channels that are out there, and there's a real trend towards organizations wanting to expand the number of channels that they interact with their customers on. And then lastly, there's other stuff. So it might be a legacy ERP system, it might be some other enterprise system that's there, and probably there's a plan to replace that at some point, but doesn't often happen at the same time as the contact center, so in the meantime there's some integration work that has to happen. But if I were going to break it down, I'd say that's basically the 4 main buckets. So I have a slide now to show a little bit more about a particular contact center of ours that's operating in the cloud, and it's called MyAssist. And just to set it up a little bit, what MyAssist does is to handle interactions if you are driving a Ford car, for instance, and you're to press the in-vehicle help button and get connected via audio, you'd get routed to a MyAssist contact center operating in the cloud. So there are other types of interactions they handle aside from just in-vehicle interactions. So they also do a personalized concierge service. So much more of that unstructured, high-touch kind of interaction I talked about earlier.
Hi, Mr. Blasvik. So I was able to reach Air France. Your parents will receive airport assistance in Paris. They're going to do their best to find a Russian-speaking gate agent.
Dr. Smith, how can I help you today?
Can you find a nice dining experience for Carrie and I? If you guys went to heaven, it would be a filet with a peppercorn sauce.
I will get you that today.
My name is Jose. How may I assist you?
My name is Kathy. My name is Allison. How may I help you?
MyAssist provides high-touch personal assistance and concierge services to clients in the automotive industry, travel industries, financial institution industries. So that means we do anything from a simple phone number lookup to helping you find an emergency vet for your sick lion.
Someone could call us at any time for service 24/7. It could be anything. We have to be agile because when the request comes in, we have no idea what it will be.
Everyone in our call center has passion for helping people. We're going to find a way to help you no matter what your question is.
So that people, when they call, they get the sense, hey, that person I'm talking to, they really are listening to me and they care about my needs.
So an agent can be as helpful as they want to be, but if they don't have the tools in front of them to solve the problems, they'll never be able to resolve the requests. And so we need to give the agents all the tools they need to be successful doing what they already love to do, which is to help people. The old solution wasn't scalable, it wasn't flexible, and it wasn't as stable as we needed it to be. Dynamics really gave us the most flexibility. It had both a premise and cloud-based solution, so we could choose which of those worked better for us. It also provided the best stability that we could identify.
What Dynamics does for an organization is help them understand the needs of every customer and react specifically to the needs of that customer. What Dynamics did for us was it tied into our Microsoft infrastructure, Outlook, and other tools, but it also gave us options to use it internally, flexibly, on-site, or to rely on the cloud when we needed it. So if we need to do something to adapt it to the needs, we can be very agile in terms of making it do what we want it to do. What Dynamics does is allows us to organize data in a meaningful way so we can deliver a service result in moments that's personalized to the needs of the customer.
And the customers get a higher level of customer service, a high level of customer quality.
Microsoft Dynamics provides just outstanding intelligence. Being predictive, understanding what our customers want, gives them a feeling of comfort.
Who do you call on? You call on a trusted friend who knows you, has the resources to help you, and that's where Dynamics comes in. It's the knowledge base that's flexible and agile that allows you to respond to the needs of your customers and to have the information at your fingertips.
Dynamics is critical to us in providing the most astonishing service that we can provide.
So in that example, they had someone who called in literally with a sick pet lion. I mean, what is the process for handling when someone calls you about a sick pet lion? I guarantee you no business analyst in the world has ever drawn a flow diagram for that, right? So that's very unstructured. It's something where agents have to be able to work outside of the boundaries of the system, right? You know, they might be posting a question to Yammer for other people that are working at the time. They might be reaching out on Link to collaborate via chat with somebody else. Might be doing a search on Google or Bing. But there are times when an interaction can have a process designed for it, and there's times when it can't. And so, again, going back to that type A, type B situation, type A, much more process-driven, type B, not as much. But both benefit definitely from both CRM and Link. Oops, sorry about that. switch my slide here. So one of the slides that was shown in the video was a quick dashboard about some of the KPIs that MyAssist uses. And everybody's got their own way of approaching the KPI problem. If I were to abstract things into the 4 buckets on the right, I'd say there's 4 main categories of business KPIs. The first of which being first contact resolution. So when an interaction came into the contact center, was it handled right the first time? Or did someone have to call again later to get that right? Obviously, you want to have the highest FCR as possible. And these can result in a great business conversation if you're working to sell a contact center deal. And you ask, well, what is your first contact resolution like today? And they might say, well, I don't know. We're not tracking that. Oh, I see. So what CRM system are you using? Well, we're not actually. Well, if you did, you'd be able to track this, and we could help you improve it. And you can understand how having a conversation around the metrics allows you, as somebody selling into the contact center, to talk at a business level instead of just a technology level. Average handle time is the second one. Just looking across all of the interactions that are handled in the contact center, what was the average time that it took to handle those? And in many cases, you actually want to break that down so that if it's a call about product A versus product B, you might want to look at the difference in the handle time between those 2 calls. And maybe product A has a much higher average handle time. Well, that becomes interesting to analyze that, maybe understand if there's room for efficiency or redesigning the process to drive down that time. There's a cluster of metrics around satisfaction, net promoter score, customer effort score. All of these metrics are measured through a survey. So that's why I say they're all very similar. Customer satisfaction simply asks the customer after an interaction with an agent, how satisfied were they? Could be a 1 to 5 scale, could be a 1 to 10 scale. Net promoter score reports on also a scale, but in this case, it's asking customers if they would recommend that organization to a friend or colleague. And the higher percentage, you have the more customers that are considered promoters of your brand, promoters of your organization. So it's reported a little differently, and there's a specific methodology for calculating the percentage, but same idea. You ask customers what they think about you, they rate you on a scale, and you report it back up to the executive level. Lastly is customer effort score, which is kind of a new metric that we're starting to hear a little bit more about. And this is another survey with a 1 to 5 rating scale, but a different question that asks the customer, the end customer, of course, how much effort did they personally invest in resolving their interaction? And we want to make it as easy as possible for them to have that interaction with your organization. There's some good research from Harvard that's come out on customer effort score, CES, showing increased loyalty, repeat purchases, increased average order value, all kinds of really good metrics associated with customer effort score. And then lastly is channel mix. So of these interaction channels that we talked about, chat, phone, email, voice, et cetera, in many cases an organization is trying to change the mix of those channels. So instead of doing all phone support, they want to push some of those to self-service. Of course, there's a very clear value story there again. If you know it costs $5 for every phone interaction and you can save 1,000 of those per some time period, well, you know exactly what the value is there. So an average phone call, for instance, typically costs a business somewhere between, call it $2 and $6 on average. Could be much higher if they have very advanced people handling that call. Web self-service costs cents. Any questions about the KPIs before I move on? I mean, again, it's an intimate audience, so if you have questions along the way, definitely raise your hand and jump in. I'm happy to answer any brain sparks that you might have. All right. So that kind of covers the contact center part. So now the cloud part. The future really is the cloud. There are conversations that I've had with customers and that I've had with salespeople who had conversations with customers and partners. And the conversation usually covered cloud at some point. But reflecting back on it, the salesperson might say or the customer might say, we looked at cloud and yeah, I mean, it looks cool, but. And there's some but, and it's about privacy or it's about security or some other perception that's there. I would estimate that 80 to 90% of the time, it's possible to get past those buts and to get past those objections by actually getting into the reality of what cloud means versus an on-premise deployment. So this is where I think it takes a little bit of a spirited approach to selling cloud, hence the conquering the cloud contact center in this talk. But I really do think this is the way the future is going. There's just a lot of movement, a lot of momentum in the marketplace happening around cloud. We also have a great product today, which one of the advantages is to be able to have a choice of on-premise or online. That's true of Lync, that's true of us. And that's still a definite value proposition to offer that choice of cloud. But at the same time, I definitely don't want the on-premise to be a crutch, to say, well, you can do either one. And the customer says, oh, well, then I just want to do on-premise. That's great for a first conversation point. But then I think we have to go a little bit deeper into the conversation about, well, let's make sure we lay out the case for cloud the right way. Now, I think there's 4 main categories of business benefit associated with cloud, and the first of which is a shared infrastructure, right? So anytime you have a multi-tenant cloud environment, you're getting a pool of resources, which has some nice benefits associated with it. In addition to being able to do it perhaps at a lower cost, you also get the ability to rapidly scale. So maybe at your peak in volume, somebody else in that tenancy's environment is going through a dip. And by smoothing that out, you can more efficiently deliver the service. And when I say you, I mean this could be Microsoft hosting the cloud environment. This could be a partner hosting the cloud environment. But I think in all of those cases, the benefits of cloud are the same. And it's primarily business benefits, right? Cloud is a business term. It's definitely not a technical term. There's no cloud standard. It's not entirely true. There is a NIST cloud standard. It's about 2 pages long compared to a NIST cloud standard or a NIST standard on something like cryptography. It's about 200 pages long. So it's just really more of a business term. And hence it's a business, it's something that empowers the business owner. So instead of having the manager have to worry about the IT and the process, they can basically just focus on the process and focus on the objectives that they're trying to achieve. And then lastly, it eliminates waste. So in some cases, right, in an on-premise deployment, the customer buys licenses, they buy hardware, they buy a bunch of stuff. They might not end up using it all, and that gets wasted. But with cloud, you don't have to worry about that. So Microsoft defines cloud in terms of public and private. It's more of a continuum, I would say, than a clear dichotomy. On one hand, the most cloudy, if you will, environment is Microsoft and the massive data centers that we have. But there are also shared private cloud environments, and that could be partner hosted, that could be customer hosted, that in many cases very closely resemble those massive data centers that Microsoft has. But there's smaller versions of those data centers that also have multi-tenancy, and then eventually you move into more of a dedicated private cloud, which becomes pretty close to just being an on-premise deployment. So you can think of it as a continuum. As you move more to like Microsoft Public Cloud, you get more of those cloud benefits, although that's, again, I just encourage you to think of it as a continuum. So drivers for cloud, one hand, you have people inside of the organization who are concerned about information control, pulling the organization one way. They're worried about privacy. They're worried about different data policies. They have lots of concerns, and they're pulling the organization one way. But in the other way, the business is getting pulled by other maybe innovators inside of that organization that are saying, well, we have to change the way we're doing business, and we have to move more quickly. We have to be more agile. And these two forces are pulling against each other. And even if they're able to reach a theoretical compromise, there is still the technology that has to be implemented in an agile way to make that work. So as you can imagine, when these 3 things come together, then you can actually get a great solution done. Returning on cloud investment, as I mentioned earlier, if you look at a sliding scale, so year 1 in an on-premise deployment, you buy a bunch of licenses, a bunch of hardware. It's a very big capital expenditure. The next year it drops down a bit, and then every year after that, you're not really the end customer is not spending that much money on that deployment. But that also means that technology isn't really getting updated. You're now stuck behind a big replacement cycle there, and until there's another big capital expenditure, right, they don't get new cool stuff. Whereas cloud, year 1, the investment is pretty reasonable. Year 2, it's the same. Year 3, it's the same. And all along that way, Microsoft is delivering new features and new functions to help the customer to stay on the latest stuff, get the latest and greatest, and there's no more kind of like open heart surgery big capital expenditure that has to happen for them to stay modern. So with that, you just have to think about the whole life cycle when building an ROI model for cloud. Maybe that year 1 looks really good for cloud, but at year 3 it looks a little different, and at year 5 it looks different yet. But again, I just encourage you to think about cloud in terms of empowering the business user, allowing them to do that open heart surgery once, and then they have a nice, consistent, predictable annual budget, and they ensure they're always on the latest and greatest stuff. I'm actually going to skip over that slide and talk about target industries a little bit. So there are 5 industries where Microsoft is going after, and all of these are ones where Microsoft corporate, we're investing dollars, marketing dollars, advertising, sales tools, other efforts where we're going after contact centers in this space. The 2 on your left here, financial services and government, are the ones where you have the greatest deal of customer success so far. The other ones are a little bit more of an opportunistic growth area for us, but these 5 are the ones that we're going to be going after, and we'd love your help to go after them together. So I saw some smiles on the last slide, so I'll actually go back to it. So there's the Magic Quadrant on the right, which is the customer service Magic Quadrant from last year. And the one on the left is a new Magic Quadrant that's come out. It's not the same one. It's been replaced with a different one. And this is where Microsoft CRM specifically sits on each one. So you'll notice, the one on the right is the new one. It's the Customer Engagement Center. The one on the left is the previous Contact Center Magic Quadrant. So you'll notice Microsoft is in the Challengers Quadrant on the right. On the left, it's the Leaders Quadrant. And so this is an area that is going to change. Microsoft is committed to moving back into the Leaders category here. We actually feel great that we were able to show up on the Challengers Quadrant here in the first year. And you should know that we're making active investments here to win in this space long term. All right. So with that, I'd like to build a little bit. So moving beyond just the contact center and just the cloud, talking a little bit about customer experience in general. Now, there's all kinds of cool facts and figures. I think one of the most interesting is a gap between perceptions and reality in the contact center. So if you ask a manager or you ask a business leader in the contact center, they are going to say customer experience is important to them. Well, of course it's important to them. It's their business, right? It's like they're working in the contact center, they're servicing customers. Well, we should focus on customer service and customer experience. But if you talk to the people they serve, if you go to their website, if you dial into their IVR, if you try and interact with them on one of those channels they offer, oftentimes it's not a good experience. And so there's a gap between what companies think they're doing and how they're actually doing. And that's a gap that you can expose very effectively as a partner, especially if you're able to bring some data into the conversation and show what the current journey is and what it could be if they worked with you to transform their contact center. So lastly, customers are willing to pay more for a better experience. This is a cool thing. For a long time, a call center and then a contact center was looked at as a cost center, right? It was just something the business was spending money on, and they had to do it because otherwise people would yell really loudly, so they're just constantly shelling out, but didn't feel like they were getting much back from it. And we're seeing that really totally change with this increased emphasis on customer experience. And now, we have people like Harvard Business Review and others actually doing the research, publishing on increased loyalty, increased average order value, willingness to spend more, willingness to complete a future transaction with the business. And all of that can be modeled financially. And sometimes it's a little bit harder to quantify it, but there are clear business benefits there too. Now, much more tactically speaking, in the contact center, it's a very, very common thing to do to provide offers. So if you're in an inbound contact center and someone is calling in because they have a cracked screen on their phone, well, that's a great opportunity to replace that screen, but maybe also sell a screen protector and an extended warranty for their phone replacement that gets sent out. And so that kind of cross-selling and upselling, again, there's clear revenue generation that's associated with that in the contact center, and that's a much clearer ROI story or ROI business case you can make in the contact center when talking about how to make money for the business instead of just save them a little bit. Saving money is always great, don't get me wrong, but if you can save money and you can make money, it just makes it that more impactful. There's some work that Forrester has done. They published a customer experience index, and what they do is they look at, they ask customers with a survey, yet again another survey. It's very similar to a satisfaction survey. They ask them, a couple of questions, and then they score and they benchmark these different organizations against their customer experience. So ones at the top are people like Amazon that are really leading the way in customer experience, and there's other businesses that are not. And so they've looked at stock performance on the S&P 500 and found that companies that do a great job with customer experience, they outperform the index consistently. And people who do bad are quickly falling behind. So on this slide, I wanted to give this to you as a bit of a, almost like a takeaway that you can use when talking about customer experience with companies. So the first of which is you have to understand the customer journey. To go back to that point about the gap between what people think they're doing or what our customers think they're doing and then the job they're actually doing, there's a gap there. Well, in order to expose that gap, you have to understand the way it is today. So you might take a diagram and map out what the interaction looks like. You might dial into their IVR and find out if the voice changes 3 times, and maybe if you press 4, it just disconnects you. I found some interesting things dialing into IVR systems before, and pretty cool conversations that have resulted from going into a business executive's office and saying, your customer experience is not very good. Well, no, of course it's good. It's important to us, and we spent money on it, and it's great. Well, no, it's not. And I have some data here. I'd like you to read this report. And by the way, have you dialed your 1-800 number? It switches voices 3 times. No, it doesn't. Yeah, it does. Let's actually, if you just put it on speakerphone, I'll show you. You can imagine, you can't argue with that when they're listening to their own IVR message, and it's not good experience. And so, once you understand what it is, once you can show that either visually or through a story, or bringing them to their own website and showing them what the experience is actually like, then you can talk about how to innovate. So then the next piece is around business value. There's the metrics we talked about earlier. You have to connect to the metrics. You've got to understand what metrics matter to them. And you also have to be able to show some leadership, not just to say, oh, you're not tracking first contact resolution. Okay, what are you tracking? You'd say, well, you should be tracking first contact resolution. That's actually the best single measurement that you can use. And how can we get there together? And so understanding the metrics, both in terms of what they're currently tracking and what they should be tracking is very important. And then from that, you can build a business case, right? If you know that every interaction costs, let's say, $4 on the phone to handle, and you can take down that number of interaction, that's great. If you can make those phone calls shorter, that's great. You can model that in terms of dollars. So you have to have a business case for customer experience. It's not enough to just say, hey, you should do it because it's cool. You should do it because everybody says you should do it. Yeah, it is cool, but at the same time, it has to make business sense. And so I think the metrics is a clear way to connect to making the business case. Also, with the objectives of the organization, there are probably things that organization is trying to do, and if you can attach to those and bring it back to the contact center, then that can be a very effective way of selling. And so lastly, once you understand where the business is, you know where it's trying to go, then you can talk about what those interaction paths are that are going to create value for your customer. So some of that's technology, some of that's process, some of that's the whole ecosystem of stuff that's going on. One of the most important is actually the people. And that's something that is interesting, right? Because it can be very difficult to change the culture of an organization. But in many cases, that's what's needed to be successful. So lastly, then, harnessing the power of the Microsoft Cloud with both CRM Online and Lync. Together, I think we've got a great customer experience story. So I have another video to show, and I'll just set this up a little bit. So we talked about the contact center sometimes being like a sweatshop, right? These people, they're not making much money. They're thinking about quitting, but they can't because they have to pay the mortgage. They're downtrodden. And they pick up the phone and they talk to a customer, and what happens? Well, they sound downtrodden because they are downtrodden, and they should be because it's kind of rough. But as you're selling a contact center deal, if you can come in as a transformative figure to say, I know it's hard today, but we can get to a great spot, and you can come with some energy as a way to refresh that, I think that's a very effective way of selling. And so this video, I think, illustrates that point nicely. So again, I know it's not a contact center story, but I like the video. I think it represents a refreshing way to sell. And it matches well with our product vision. So we feel that one of our unique differentiators is our ability to inspire the people inside of the organization. And the agents, they're the frontline staff. They're the people that are the feet on the street making it happen. And without having them have the right tools, it's tough for them to do a great job. And part of that is tools, part of it's the culture, part of it's the reward system. It's a complicated problem, no doubt, but it's one that's worth solving. And so some things that we're doing internally in our product to help you with this is literally everything that we are doing in our product is designed around these user experience principles. We're trying to make our system simple, usable, modern, fast, and even loved, right? And I know that sounds a little bit funny, like, I probably would never wake up in the morning and give my CRM system a hug. But at the same time, if my current CRM system is like a sharp stick in the eye, well, if I can get that stick out and I can get something that works and it looks good and it helps me with my job, well, you know what? I love that. That's awesome. That's a great CRM system. And that's what we're trying to make Dynamics. So there's 3 pillars here. This gets in a little bit more of the marketing, but I'm a marketing guy, so you're stuck with me. So first of all, the actionable insights, right? This gets into the business intelligence, but any contact center has to have actionable data. It's not enough to just have a report that they look at that doesn't really tell them anything. They have to look at something that makes it very clear what they need to do. Maybe they need to staff differently. Maybe they need a process redesign. Maybe they need a new channel. It's hard to say what the insights could be. That's literally endless, but we feel that's critical, and it's something that we're designing our product around. Second is flawless execution. So once an actionable piece of data is identified, you have to be able to take that data and use it in the context of an interaction to just to be perfect, because that's the moment of truth. When that frontline employee is on the phone with an agent, that really is an opportunity for the business. It's not just a call. It's an opportunity to create a lasting relationship, and so you have to be perfect with that. I know that's a high bar, but that's what we're trying to drive towards. And then lastly, you have to be thoughtful in your interactions. So, thoughtful can mean different things here. It might mean having a very personalized interaction with a customer, but it might also mean understanding which channel is right for a customer, and understanding that not all customers are the same on every day, right? If I have a problem, let's say with a lost credit card, well, if I have to solve my problem on my own on a website with a lost credit card, by looking at some top 10 FAQ answer on lost credit cards, probably not going to work for me. I'm probably going to have to find a 1-800 number. And when I do, I'm going to be upset that I couldn't find it on the website. And now that agent has to deal with me, that I'm irritated. I just spent 10 minutes looking for a phone number, couldn't find it. Now I finally did. And I'm frustrated because I don't have my credit card. And it's just a bad situation, right? So if there's a way to understand what the customer's intent is, maybe when they're submitting a form on the website, they have to select what kind of problem they want to send an email to the business about, or what kind of problem they want to contact the business about. And it's only after that you understand what the problem is that you show what the contact options are. Maybe if it's a forgotten password, you don't show a phone number. Maybe you just bring them right to the password reset tool on that page, and that's the only channel that they have to interact with. And so that's what we mean when we say being thoughtful in those interactions. CRM in the contact center. This is a slide. I'll just play all the animation here. These are things that we feel like, in the CRM product in particular, are real strengths for us and differentiators for us. And so if any of these things come up, or you can focus a conversation on one of these things, it'll end well, because we have a good product and we're differentiated well. And we feel like these are things that we'll talk about all day long. So our release plan, we have a series of releases coming out. They're actually pretty exciting for us. So first of all, there's the Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2013 release, which will be coming out this fall. Did any of you get to sit in the CRM Vision session the other day and see the demo? Cool. Great. So there's very cool reimagined user experience that's coming out this fall. We saw the first signaling of that in our release in December, but this fall, those user experience principles that I talked about later are really fully expressed in the product, and we're very excited about that. The Leo release is going to be one that's particularly interesting for customer care. So there are some things that are coming in that release and some things that are coming beyond that release. And I had hoped to be able to make an announcement to you all today about what some of those things are, and I'm not able to yet, but there are good things coming. And these are the things that we're publicly communicating about customer care specifically and social care. For instance, being able to take a Twitter interaction and put that into a queue and give that to an agent in the contact center to handle. Case management is something that engineering work is underway now, and in fact, the first few sprints are done. We're going to have what I'll say is best-in-class case management capabilities of any CRM vendor. It's going to be very exciting. And then also SLAs and entitlements. So SLAs, service level agreement, is basically understanding if an interaction comes into a queue, how long does it spend in that queue? If it's assigned to an agent, how long does that agent have to respond? Maybe if they don't respond quickly enough, that gets escalated to some other tier 2 support or something like that. That's what we mean when we're talking about SLAs and entitlements.
Can I just ask, when you say best-in-class case management, what's missing in the current case management that needs to be improved to be best-in-class?
That's a great question. So I don't think there's anything missing. I think it's more that our case management today is a strength for us. Honestly, it is. I think with the reimagined user experience that's coming out with this Dynamics CRM 2013 release, it's taking those same workflow capabilities that we have, but making it much more visual, much more engaging. So I don't necessarily think it's anything missing. I think we're in a pretty good place today, and I think it's going to be moving us into, beyond a doubt, a leadership position.
Yeah, I think SLA and entitlements are clearly a key missing feature for the product, but those would be the best-in-class
Case management, right? So
what's in those sprints would be
yeah, so we showed a little bit of that in the Vision demo that was
just basically a flatter UI.
So the flattened UI, right, but also the process-driven nature. So you can take an interaction, have a business analyst, understand what the best practice is for handling that interaction, and then guide an agent step by step through that process, making sure that the right gates along the way are checked, and if there's other things that are required that they happen, that enforces that. Any other questions about this before I move on? Yeah. Sure. Absolutely no photographs. No, I'm just kidding.
Did you say that was Leo you were talking about right there, or was this the Mira?
So the Leo release is the release that our customer care capabilities are slated for. Yeah, and as I mentioned, there'll be more information coming about that. All right. This is an eye chart, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on it. And the funny thing about it is that there's a bunch of stuff missing. There are literally a whole bunch of other things that I could put on this chart. And this is not a roadmap. This is not, hey, Microsoft is going to go do all of these things, so get ready. That's not what this is intended to be. This is my own view of a larger technology ecosystem and how I might look at it if I were a senior decision maker at a large enterprise who is going to be conducting a large contact center project. For instance, all of the things on right, all of these different channels, all of these are pretty interesting, right? Chat, clear value proposition for that. Web self-service, again, really clear value proposition. Something like community support, well, it's a little bit more of an emerging area. Having a customer post a question to a forum and have another customer help that customer is interesting. Things like Twitter and Facebook, text messaging. There's literally, these channels are starting to explode, and there's more and more of these channels. And it's something where we're actually very excited about Link and Skype and being able to do a video call with a customer, being able to have an engaging IVR system through Link. All of these things are great opportunities for Microsoft as a business in general. We feel there's a great ecosystem of stuff going on here. Some of it's from Microsoft, some of it's from partners, some of it's white space for other partners. And one of the partners is here with us today. Nikhil is here. And so the work that he does is for an ISV called Moxie Software that is particularly helping us in this omni-channel place today. So honestly, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, that's a great question. It'd be great to get your contact info and I can follow up. So the contact center is a differentiator. How many of you have heard of Metro Bank before? A couple of you. And how many before the vision session yesterday had heard of Metro Bank? Okay, a few people. Cool. Do you bank at Metro Bank?
No, what is it's about half a mile from my office.
Is it? Interesting. So first new bank in the UK in almost 100 years. Literally, I guess there's only like 4 or 5 banks or something in the UK.
That's excluding all the internet banks, so there's probably got 1 video for the last 10 years, but anyway.
But not physical, first physical bank. Right. Well, they think of their experience as a retail store experience, which is interesting. So the fellow Vernon Hill actually wrote a book called Fans Not Customers, and he talks about customer experience and engaging customers and just lots of cool stuff and cool stories in his book. But one of the things he talks about is just creating these very attractive, glassy, shiny banks that invite people in. They invite customers to engage. And literally everything the bank does is focused on their brand, and in particularly their brand is focused on the customer experience. Everything that they do, their culture, every interaction that they have with their customers, the design of their stores, every piece of that experience, somebody has thought about that and thought about how to make that amazingly good. So there's literally just countless cool stories of Metro Bank. I can't even do them justice by telling every story, but I think, they're open 7 days a week. They're open 363 days a year or something like that. You can bring your bike in. You can bring your dog in. If you sign up for an account, you can walk in with just a driver's license or a passport. You don't have to bring like a passport and a driver's license and a utility statement and a blood and urine sample and like all of this crazy, literally, like if you've opened an account at a bank recently, they ask for just a crazy amount of identification. Not at Metro Bank. You can show up with your credit card, show up with your driver's license to sign up for a credit card. They'll let you open the account. They'll print the card in the store for you and give it to you while you wait, taking minutes instead of like a month for them to send it from some outsourced card printing service. So very cool experience. If you're doing a contact center deal anywhere in financial services, this is an awesome customer story. Their contact center is in the cloud. They're using Link. They're using CRM. In the book, Fans Not Customers, Vernon Hill actually talks about using the contact center as a differentiator for their business. So very cool book, very cool story. If you're doing any financial services deals at all, or maybe even outside of financial services, it's an awesome story to learn. All right, so with that, I mentioned earlier that we're getting some help from Moxie in the omnichannel space. And so I've asked Nikhil to join us on stage and talk a little bit about some of the work that they've done with Link and with CRM from the perspective of an ISV. Nikhil?
Get this thing out. Thank you, Ben. Hi, everyone. So what I thought I'd do is, I probably shouldn't talk so loud. That a little bit. Yeah, so what I wanted to do is, spend a few minutes talking about Moxie and how we work with Dynamics to deliver better contact center solutions. What we do is we offer solutions both in the cloud as well as on-premise for the multi-channel contact center. So essentially, if your customers have needs for email management, chat, web self-service, knowledge base, click-to-call, all the channels that Ben talked about as part of the last stack then in the last picture are channels that we provide that you can offer to contact centers. And using the integration that we've built with Dynamics CRM, what we do is we take all those interactions and you can then store those interactions within the Dynamics CRM platform. So you would use Dynamics for your case management, your contact management, etc. We integrate all the data into Dynamics, but we provide you with the channel, with the agent desktop, with the routing for the email, the chat sessions, etc. So typically we are used in a variety of verticals, right? High volume contact centers. We power multi-million chat sessions per month at Dell, at customers like Fidelity, at Barclays Bank, Staples, and Skype. So large contact centers use us for multi-channel and plugged into CRM systems. So just to cover the basics now, this is the data, right? This is the world that we live in. Our customers are across all these channels, and they expect service across these channels. So don't tell a customer who's on the website to call a 1-800 number, and don't tell a person who's on the phone to go read the FAQs on the website, right? Customers expect to be serviced where they are, and your challenge, your customer's challenge as a contact center is doing all this with the same investment, doing more with less, right? And that's where we come in. We help contact centers deliver the multi-channel engagement capabilities across these channels. The phone is still king, but one trend that we've noticed is that phone is increasingly becoming less prevalent as a channel of choice for customers. Customers are tending towards web self-service, which is essentially help me find the answer on my own. I don't want to talk to anybody. And the alternative channels such as chat, peer-to-peer with community, and of course, social is really catching up speed there. Here is a marketecture diagram, right? This is a solution that exists today for contact centers. Think of us as the transaction layer that sits on top of Dynamics CRM, right? So we provide email, chat, self-service through the knowledge base, social media, co-browse, and really exciting for us to announce our Link integration. Essentially what that means is we can now bring Link into the contact center. So Link does have some basic IVR capabilities, right? It's fairly basic, but it does have that. What we do is we tap into the Link phone call. We evaluate the IVR. You can code routing rules within Moxie so that we can then route that Link call to the best available agent. And you now have the agent who can answer the Link call, gets connected with the customer, and all that transaction information, all the call notes, etc., gets stored within Dynamics CRM. So that agent becomes now a blended agent, meaning that they can handle email, chat, phone, and Moxie will control the routing so that you don't have one agent having a phone and a chat session at the same time, right? So we bring that call center, contact center capabilities to market, and it's all tightly tied into Dynamics at the end of the day. Skype is one of our marquee accounts. We'd love to talk about Skype because they are a great, we're great partners with Microsoft, and I think Skype is a shining example of that. Skype uses us for email and chat support. So if you have a problem with your Skype account, you're probably talking to a contact center agent in Estonia or the Philippines using our software. They have around 800 to 900 agents using our technology. And they do, maybe around, I forget the numbers, but probably around 100,000 emails and a couple of 100,000 chat sessions per month. So pretty high volume, but not our largest. And like Ben alluded to, it's really in the contact center, and you folks know it better than we do. It's really all about driving efficiencies, right? It's all about how you can ensure that you're meeting your SLA compliance, your first contact resolution, your agent productivity. The great thing about chat as a medium is that you can do more than one chat session at the same time, right? Our average customer does around 1.67, which is an odd number, but it's more than one, right? So phone is one-to-one, chat is one-to-many, and that drives efficiencies within the contact center, which is one of the reasons why many customers are encouraging chat adoption. The beauty about chat is also that it can be used both in a sales enablement scenario and in support, and it can be you can tune your website, right? So what we do is we can offer you A/B testing to understand which chat rules give you the best ROI, right? You can pop chat based on customer footprint on the website, based on referring URLs. So for example, if you have a marketing campaign, you can say that all folks who are driven to your website by virtue of the marketing campaign get the chat pop up, so that you can really align your resourcing so that at the end of the day, you want to deliver a great customer experience. Right? So I think Moxie and Microsoft together really deliver on this notion of a great customer experience, right? It's in the cloud. It's all about the customer experience. It's all about turning it on when you need it, turning it off when you don't. So we're really excited to work with Microsoft and work with you as partners to help you win business in the contact center. I think that was it. Ben, or what? Do we have more? Yep, and again, just to talk about Link, this is available today, so feel free to talk to us if you have an opportunity to use Link in the contact center and plugged into Dynamics CRM at the end of the day. So, thank you, and I'll be around for questions if you have any.
Yeah, well, I think we could actually just do that now.
Okay.
I think there's just one last slide that's a call to action, but I think probably seen this already. There's the training blitz that's coming up. I encourage you to sign up. There's going to be some great content there as part of the Dynamics CRM release that's coming this fall. So with that, if you have any questions for Nikhil or I, definitely ask away. And I see many of you taking pictures and everything. That's totally cool. If you'd like, you can give me your business card, and I'll send you a digital copy of the presentation afterward. So any questions? Yep.
How do you address those objections?
So objections around latency and throughput specifically? Yeah. So I mean, so I'm not like a network engineer, and I think it probably boils down to doing some pretty specific understanding of what the requirements are. So I'd want to understand what the requirements truly are versus just sort of a stated, well, it needs to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, that's great. What does that actually mean? Like, what does it look like? Kind of a click deeper than that, and then maybe getting them connected to somebody who has expertise in network engineering would be good. But our online service is incredibly important to us, and we understand that in the past it's quite frankly not been as good as it could be, and so we know that, and it's getting better. There's very clear investments that we're making in that now. So with this, with the coming release and coming investments, I think that's something that'll get better. So that would be my, just kind of off the top of my head, idea on how to address it.
What about security?
Security, yeah. So there's a pretty extensive list of security and ISO and other technical standards that we adhere to. And so we're able to pretty consistently check the box all the way down the list on all of those different things. I mean, we have federal customers who have very tight requirements on their data control. We have many other government customers in the state and local government space. I mean, for instance, the Illinois Department of Corrections is now running on Dynamics CRM Online. So they have about 5,000 seats of online, and literally they use it to track prisoners. And so, it was kind of funny, also terribly scary at the same time, but they literally were like, oh yeah, well, since we implemented CRM, we reduced the number of accidentally released sex offenders by like 300%. And you're like, oh God, okay, well, that's great, but so the state of Illinois feels good enough about it for prisoners, right? So I think if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for just about anybody. Any other questions?
There's obviously a bit of a food chain in the contact center world, from high-end solutions like Genesys all the way down to things like Cisco and Avaya. Where do you see the opportunity for Dynamics and Link to compete against those legacy solutions?
Yeah. So at a high level, we feel like Link Online, there should be no concerns about that. From a scalability, from a performance standpoint, there may be specific kind of feature check boxes that aren't there yet. That would be a great question for the Link team. I'm not quite sure, like when we get into deep contact center infrastructure and all of the stuff that happens there. That's not my personal area of expertise. So. I defer to them on kind of what that exactly looks like, but in terms of a general platform, because I asked a similar question of our Link team, and they said, you know what, we're going after big contact centers, we're going after high volume stuff with Link, and they feel pretty good about that.
I have a question. So is there any integration between Link and CRM Plan with these future releases, just out of the box? I know we have Moxie folks here, but just from Microsoft. Similar maybe with SharePoint and CRM.
So I'll say it's not on our currently published roadmap. Yeah,
but you could use Moxie until then. I'm kidding.
So as I mentioned, there's investments that are being made in the contact center space. What exactly that looks like, I can't say. That would be something, Link and CRM, I think it makes sense. But again, we've not published anything. We've not made any commitments there. Any other questions? All right. Well, as I mentioned, feel free to bring up a business card, and I can send you a digital copy of the slides. And enjoy your evening in Houston. Thank you.
Thank you.